It's time to ask me anything.
Ask me something.
Let's start with this one. Jolski.
Yes.
It's a great name. Jolski wants to know, I just want a mini diatribe, deep dive, on his Van Halen thoughts. I'm old and a hard David Lee Roth guy. So if he wants to expand on why he's stuck with them, I'll respectfully be all ears.
Fucking Eddie Van Halen's the greatest guitar player in the fucking world. Why would I stop listening because Dave quit the fucking band? You know? It's like the Eagles traded, their quarterback. Am I going to stop fucking rooting for the fucking Eagles? David Lee, was Dave a great part of it? Dave was a good, great front man. Singer, when they first signed to Warner Brothers, there was fucking talk about having Sammy Hagar join the band before Van Halen won, because Ted Templeman thought, in the word of Bret Hart, he thought his singing was the shits. And then, fucking Dave had to go get vocal lessons and stuff like that to try to learn how to sing and shit like that. He's a good front man. They did, what they did was great, but eventually, you can't be a fucking 30 or 40-year-old man on stage in assless chaps, just bozy bopping all over the fucking place.
Scoobity bop, doo bop.
Yeah, what they did in those first 6 records was amazing, and I love it. But when it comes down to it, Eddie Van Halen's the second. To me, Eddie Van Halen's the greatest guitar player in the world. I've said this before. He's, in my opinion, he's the greatest guitar player in the world. Second, I'll give you I'll spot you Jimi Hendrix, because he came first, But in terms of creativity, with playing the instrument, and he invented so much stuff for the guitar. He's got his own line of amplifiers and guitars out. He reinvented it. He literally reinvented the guitar with drop D tuning and stuff like that. Or he invented devices that made the, look, I don't play guitar, so I'm not even gonna fucking pretend I know what I'm talking about with the actual mechanics. Like somebody tell me how to run a high spot. It's never done a high spot. But it's just when you have the world's best guitar player in the world, I don't care who's fucking singing.
Right.
Some of those Sammy, I've been listening to a lot of the Sammy stuff lately, and Eddie's a fucking tone hunter. Some of the sounds he gets out of that fucking thing is amazing. The Balance record, his sound on that fucking album is amazing. It's funny because like I'll listen to bands and sometimes I don't even fucking pay attention to the lyrics. I pay attention to the fucking groove,
right,
the vibe of the song. When I was a kid, I used to go out and buy albums, buy tapes or whatever, and I would lay there and read every fucking single line or note, every single lyric. I miss tapes because like you open up and you smell the ink.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, oh, this is the best fucking thing. I'd get a fucking bag full of wrestling magazines and go to the mall, get a new, band, get a new, cassette tape, lay in bed and read my magazines and then, play the album and just read everything. Who engineered it? Okay. Just read everything. And, I don't even know how I got down that sidebar, but, yeah, Eddie Van Halen's the greatest guitar player in the world. So what? He played keyboards. Fuck it. He said, my favorite Eddie line is like, I'm a musician. If I want to play the fucking Bavarian cheese whistle, I will.
The Bavarian cheese whistle.
Yeah. If Eddie Van Halen made a record of him fucking farting through a kazoo, I would fucking buy it. I grew up in the era of MTV where, you would see like, not only see music videos, but you would see interviews and personality profiles and specials. And there was just something about him so like, I would love to hang out with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, something that's maybe missing from wrestling. That's why I think, Tough Enough was such a great show, because it showed the people behind behind the scenes, trying to make it in the business and people connect with people personally, they're more likely to be invested in the person as a character.
Right.
So, and I would watch, all the Van Halen. I had VHSs of Van Halen specials, interviews, videos, live shit, and I just wanted to hang out with the dude.
Yeah.
His personality, his sense of humor, shit like that. So yeah, Dave great? Yeah. All right. But fuck it. You know, to me, Ed Van Halen's always been about Eddie.
Yeah. Unquestionably. It's
Yeah.
Eddie was the guy.
Yeah. Eddie was so good that, Dave had to go get an Eddie clone with Steve Vai to handle Eddie's stuff.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny. I like the Sammy era stuff, but I can't bring myself to go see him now, like solo. Even though he's got Michael Anthony with him, I would love to go see him. But I don't like Sammy's guitar player because he can't hit. I don't like the way he plays Eddie's stuff.
Interesting. But I think that's a testament to Eddie Van Halen too, though, is the fact that like you can change out. I mean, they had 3 lead singers, and
Yeah.
each one of those records was pretty solid. I mean, not everything was great, right? But like it was like David had a certain style, and then Sammy had a certain style, and then the name escapes me, the third singer, but like he had a certain style that wasn't. What is his name?
Gary Sharon from Extreme.
That's it, Gary Sharon. And Gary had his own style, but it all worked because it was still Eddie. The nexus of it was always Eddie Van Halen, like the core of it.
Yeah, the mistake they made with Gary Sharon. I mean, they were lucky they struck gold with Sammy.
Right.
But Sammy was a successful solo artist coming off one of the biggest hits of the 80s with I Can't Drive 55. So you had the merging of 2 fan bases, between Sammy's fan base and Van Halen's fan base. I think when it came to, trying to, strike, go to the well, as Gorilla Monsoon would say, they went to the well one too many times.
Right.
You bring in Gary, and you know what? The Gary record's good. But they probably, at that point, should have just called it something else.
Yeah.
But I know where Eddie's coming from, where, look, it's my fucking name.
Yeah.
The mistake they made with Gary is I think they should have went out and toured first. Just go out. Don't go in the fucking studio. Just go out and tour and let people listen to Gary sing those fucking The best thing about Gary was he could sing the Sammy and he could sing the Dave stuff.
Right.
And he's got that raspy voice, kind of like a Sammy. When he sings the Sammy stuff, he sounds like Sammy, but he could also handle the Dave stuff. So you're getting the best of Sammy, best of Dave, and that tour was really good. And that Van Halen 3 was a good album. It was a bit experimental because it was more that, the album was more of like an Eddie Van Halen solo record, but it was still good. Just a lot of it, some songs on there, you could tell, hear his influences because I know Eddie was a big Peter Gabriel fan. And there's like a song on there called Once that I was like, oh, this is fucking Peter Gabriel right here.
Right.
And great song, great singer. They probably should have just toured first before they put out the album.
Yeah.
And, did jello a little bit, But to me, it's always been about Eddie.
Here's some crazy things I did not know until right now as I was reading this.
No pun intended.
Yeah. They offered it to 2 other people. So initially, when David Lee Roth left the band, Eddie Van Halen invited Patti Smith of Scandal, which is a band I guess from the 80s, as a woman lead singer. That would have been pretty rad.
Yeah,
that would have been a really rad sound.
Well, they were just throwing names out there. They're like, should we do an all-star record? Because they were fucking sitting around going, they're fucking devastated. Fucking,
I'm sure
they're in a band with a guy and he wants to go fucking be a movie star. He wrote a script for a movie called Crazy from the Heat, which eventually became the name of his autobiography. And he wanted to fucking be a movie star. He wanted to, do movies and be a showman.
And it's crazy because like they had a huge fucking record. 1984 was a huge fucking record. And then he just leaves. He's just like, oh, no, I'm out of here. See ya. And it's like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, no shit. No wonder they're going to be pissed off. But here's a name I was surprised about reading. Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates was offered too, which is crazy. Like, that is nuts. What do you think a Daryl Hall fronted Van Halen record would have sounded like?
No clue, but I'm trying to think of what songs it. Like maybe the one song I could hear him doing is "I'll Wait" off in 1984, but that's about it.
That's wild.
Yeah, but just Dave wanted to go be a movie star. I had a point and it fucking disappeared.
Well, I was going to say was one of the crazier stories about David Lee Roth and Van Halen, or Eddie Van Halen rather, was there was a beef apparently, and maybe you'll probably be able to correct me because you seem to be the Van Halen historian here, but about the Beat It record by Michael Jackson, which I'm not sure if you know this, but this is actually true. I researched this and I found out it's true. When they were playing back, or when Eddie was playing in the studio, the speakers lit on fire. The monitor speakers lit on fire because it was such a crazy solo.
Yeah.
But the reason he's not credited on that record is because David Lee Roth didn't want him to be credited on the record. Is that right? Or is it the studio?
No. Here's the deal. It's I love this story because the band was on hiatus. They're taking a break from touring and all that shit. Everybody was on vacation. Mike was away. Eddie, Al was away. Dave was away. Nobody was around. So Eddie's, gets a phone call and he answers and the guy goes, "Hey, this is Quincy Jones." And he thinks it's a fucking prank call. He goes, and he fucking hangs up on him. Quincy Jones calls back again. "Hey, blah, 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 blah." And he's like, "Stop calling, you fucking asshole," and hangs up, right? So, Steve Lukather, who I've grown to love, the guitar player from Toto, because Michael Jackson, the backing band on Michael Jackson's Thriller album was Toto.
Wow.
No
shit.
They were all. Toto was just a group of studio musicians that played on played on every fucking record.
You just blew my fucking mind with that. I had no idea that was true.
Steve Lukather was the guitar player on Olivia Newton-John's Physical.
Wow.
Guitar player from Toto.
Wow.
And Richard H. I hope I say this name right. So Steve Lukather calls and goes, "Hey, Quincy Jones is trying to call you." He's like, "Oh, he's real?" That's just because Eddie's so out of the fucking loop. He doesn't know who fucking Quincy Jones is. So he calls him back. Eddie goes in the studio. And basically he said, "Michael left the room. I listened to it, and Eddie rearranged the fucking song from how they had it done." And he moved one point. I'm not even going to try to. He moved something around and did the solo. And Michael came back in the room. He's like, "Hey man, I hope you don't mind. I kind of rearranged your song." And they played the thing for Michael. And he's like, Michael likes it when he goes, "Oh, that sounds really good." But to get back to your point, Eddie said declined to take a pay cut from it, or to decline to get paid, because he said it took me literally a couple minutes and it felt like he said he would have felt guilty taking money for it because he just was in there for like a couple minutes and just blazed out a fucking solo and left.
Right. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
The other fucking funny story is they were recording on some kind of tape. I forget what it was, but like there's like a code on the tape, and he cut up the fucking tape to rearrange the song. And it kind of like threw everything out of fucking whack. So, Steve Lukather told about how like Quincy Jones had them go back in and record their parts for Beat It because Eddie had rearranged a lot of the shit.
Right.
That like the tapes weren't lining up. There's some kind of coded tape that they use, and he cut through the fucking thing and it wasn't syncing back up, so they had to go back and re-record it. But
that's crazy.
What they had with Eddie's solo is they didn't want to fuck that up. Here's the funny thing. Eddie was like, "You know what? I did it because nobody was around for me to ask permission to do it."
Smart man.
He's like, who's going to know that I did this, kid's fucking record,
Yeah.
So Eddie said he was in a Tower Records in Hollywood. He's shopping, and he's in line, and Beat It comes on the radio, and the guy in front of him like goes, "Listen to this guy trying to be like Eddie Van Halen," and he was like, "Oh, you know,"
That's
and
funny.
Beat It kind of threw a wedge in the relationship with Ed and Dave because 1984 comes out, one of their biggest singles with Jump,
Right.
and Beat It was the number 1 album. So
Oh, right.
Eddie playing on Beat It cock blocked his own album from going to #1. With
No shit.
he cock blocked 1984 from going to #1 playing on Beat It.
Wow. Have you?
Yeah.
So speaking of John's one of my favorite artists of all time. John Mayer, because I'm wearing a shirt today
Yes.
from the tour. Did you ever hear the cover? I'm not sure you're a Fall Out Boy guy, but have you ever heard the Beat It?
No, I've seen John Mayer do Van Halen's Panama.
Wow.
And he's got the replica Frankenstein guitar Eddie plays, and he'll play that while doing Panama.
I liked John Mayer's solo on that song
I
because I'll send you a link, but it's Fall Out Boy
like
and
I like John Mayer.
John is probably top 3 one of my favorite artists of all time. I've seen him live a bunch. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But his solo is reminiscent of Van Halen, but I think it's almost like his own style because like how are you gonna replicate this, right? When in 2009, I remember having a conversation with Chad Ginsburg of CKY because they were covering Beat It at all of their live shows. Michael Jackson died June 25th. So from that point on, that night they had a show somewhere. And from that point until the end of the Carver City tour, they covered Beat It. And I was expecting Chad to like solo because I don't know if you've ever heard him solo before, but he's incredible. And I remember asking him just as an off question, I was like, how come you don't do the Eddie part? And he was like, why would I do the Eddie part when Eddie does it the best already? And I was like, okay, that's fair. Fair. That's a fair question. So I think for me, like when I think about that cover, I'm like, I appreciate the fact that John didn't try to do a full Eddie cover. I appreciate that he did his own thing on that.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
One other side note on this, because now we're talking music, and I really like this part of when we do this stuff. But I learned stuff. There was this great Twitter feed where it was like tell me about the coolest like black industry stories when they're talking about like African American artists and different things in the musical world. It's this deep dive into like history of music, and I'm just fucking all about that. But apparently, the Batman soundtrack from 1989 rather was supposed to be a collaborative record between Prince and Michael Jackson, where Prince would play the Joker part and Michael Jackson would play the Batman songs. And for whatever reason, I guess, industry politics didn't allow that to happen. But one of the that was a legit beef too. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I think Prince was trying to be like, let's try to fix this and let's like make it work. But I think Michael probably had some more to do with that than what they let on. But anyway, so the next time they try to collaborate together, Michael Jackson wants him on Bad. And so he sends him a copy of the record, and Prince listens to it, and he goes, the first line is, your butt is mine. Like, whose butt? You're not going to talk about my butt. Of course, so he's being, like, petty, right?
Right.
Prince re-records the entire fucking song and sends it back to Michael Jackson, right? Sends it back to him, like, totally remastered and re-recorded. He goes, you should release the record like this, because then I'll do it. And Michael was like, nope, I'm not doing this. And it was like, that's, I think, another part of that. But it's just so wild to know that like there's all these intricate parts of like these different, and how like Prince and Van Halen and Michael Jackson, how they all kind of like intertwine with each other. I just find that stuff so fascinating.
I was listening to the Ted Templeman audiobook. Ted Templeman, great producer. He discovered Van Halen, discovered the Doobie Brothers, all this stuff.
Wow.
And he said he was also an executive at Warner Brothers. He had an office, and Prince would go in his office to listen to the music and stuff like that. And Prince was trying to figure out how he could get as big as Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Prince, records his own stuff, produces his own stuff. And Ted Templeman goes, well, why don't you do a collaboration with Quincy Jones? And fucking Prince just stormed out of his office. He was just like, he just left and just fucking, because he wants to do his own shit. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, he doesn't want anyone to tell him how to do it. That makes sense.
yeah, records his own shit, writes his own shit, produces his own shit. You know,
I'm
kind
sure.
of like Eddie. You know,
I'm sure that was probably insulting to him. Like, oh well, I don't need Quincy. You know, like I could see it from Prince's point of view, where he's like, well, I don't need Quincy Jones to do this record. You know, like I don't need him to do it. But I don't know if there's really anyone who could have been as big as Michael Jackson in the '80s. You know, like I don't. I mean, even in spite of the 1984 record coming out at the same time as Thriller, that record was. I mean, Thriller is like arguably the most popular music record of all time. I don't think anyone could have, no matter what, whether or not Eddie played on the record or not. I don't think anybody would have ever gotten as big as that. But,
and bringing it back to Daryl Hall.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
Daryl Hall said when they were doing "We Are the World," Michael Jackson comes up and goes, "I hope you don't mind. I stole the bass line from your song." And the opening bass riff from Billie Jean is supposed to be a nod to Hall & Oates' I can't go for that. No can do. The bass in that Hall & Oates song inspired the bass riff for Billie Jean.
No shit.
When they're doing "We Are the World," Michael Jackson goes up there, Daryl Hall, "I hope you don't mind me taking your bass riff from your song."
Wow.
But yeah. Oh, speaking of Prince and Michael Jackson, have you seen the video where fucking James Brown brings them both on stage?
Yes.
And
Yes, that is incredible.
Yeah. Only James Brown can fucking get that done. You know,
absolutely.
And Prince are on stage with.
I think that's the only time that they were ever actually like together, recorded, like performing, or even in the general vicinity of each other. Because that was a real. I would love to get like a real deep analysis of that story, because I think, like I said, like everybody acts like Prince is just this like super, petty bitchy dude, but Michael Jackson knew what the fuck he was doing. He bought out that whole thing from Paul McCartney. He knew exactly what he was doing, and like McCartney taught him how to do it. But I think, to be clear, like,
and he told McCartney he was going to do it, and McCartney thought he was joking.
Well, because McCartney told him that I think it was like this weird thing where like McCartney and Yoko Ono, and I think maybe the other two guys were like involved in buying their masters back or something. And Michael Jackson bought the catalog, like the company that owned like Elvis Presley's masters and the Beatles. So it wasn't just like specifically the Beatles, but Paul taught him everything he knew. He was like, this is how you make your money. You own these masters. You own these copies. He did the same thing to Eminem. When Eminem dissed him in the mid-2000s, he was like, well, fuck you. I'm going to stick it where it hurts. And now Michael Jackson's estate owns a bunch of Eminem's masters from like his first three popular albums. But
wow.
Michael knew what the fuck he was doing. He wasn't stupid. He may have been an odd duck, but he certainly knew exactly what he was doing when it came to that kind of stuff.
He thought he was Peter Pan.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's sort of, I would love that. If anybody can recommend to me, if there's anything out there about the Prince and Michael Jackson beef or anything like that, I would love to read that. Camerata has a quick question before we go into the next Ask Meanie part.
Before we do that.
Yeah.
Before we move on from the Van Halen topic.
Yeah.
Get these, if you want to get into the Van Halen world, get the book Van Halen Rising by Greg Renoff. And then after that, listen to Running with the Devil by Noel Monk, who was their tour manager. Greg Renoff covers Van Halen from their childhood up until they get signed. Noel Monk covers from when they get signed to 1984. And eventually when Dave splits off, he goes with Dave. Then get the book Unchained, which is a series of transcribed interviews with Eddie Van Halen, which is cool because in the Renoff books, in the Noel Monk book, and you also get the Ted Templeman book.
Okay.
Because he covers Van Halen, but he covers everything. There's a lot of things where they talk about Eddie, and then I listened to Unchained book, and he starts talking about the things they said about him in the book indirectly. He's like,
right.
Like on the 1984 record, Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers wrote a song in 1984, and they were having problems with writing the song "I'll Wait." So Michael McDonald wrote some of the stuff. Now Ted Templeman says he wrote the song for the album, and they didn't give him credit, and they screwed him on royalties, which Michael McDonald sued for. Now I listened to the Eddie Van Halen book, and he's like, "Yeah, fucking Ted Templeman had a recorder under his desk and recorded Michael McDonald listening to the song and took his ideas to Dave. They recorded the song and we got fucking sued." So you hear both sides of the fucking, stuff like that. You hear both sides of this story. So
wow.
now, if you want to dive into the Sammy years, get Sammy Hagar's book, which in hindsight, he says he was a little bit rough on the Van Halen brothers, which he kind of wish he wasn't, but that's so Van Halen Rising, Running with the Devil, get the Ted Templeman book, and get the Unchained book. You could get the Sammy book, and also get Steve Lukather's book from Steve Lukather, the guitar player for Toto. His book's fucking fantastic.
He was playing.
He was playing for some jazz musician. He was like 19. He started playing Boz Scaggs. He started playing with Boz Scaggs when he was a teenager. Walking in buying cars with cash and shit like that.
Jesus Christ.
Talks about working with Eddie. All the bands he worked with is fucking amazing. He talks about Eddie a lot on there too. So him and Eddie were fucking tight.
One thing I want to mention, this is because you brought up the Doobie Brothers, and I feel like I would be remiss not to mention it since we were talking about all this musical stuff. There is a rumor out there that Michael Jackson put out many years ago that he sang the high notes on probably their most recognizable song, What a Fool Believes. And when you listen to it, you hear it, you can't unhear it. Now, the Doobies have maintained that, that's not accurate, but it's like, but it sounds like Michael Jackson singing these fucking high notes on that record, guys. Like, it definitely sounds like this. If it's not, you probably have the best Michael Jackson impersonator of all time. Mark and Dryden wants to know. That was fucking fantastic, by the way, guys. Please continue to ask us music questions because the more, like, I know this is a wrestling podcast, but, like, I don't want to speak for Meanie, but I love talking music, and I know Meanie, I feel like Meanie does as well.
Our tagline is we talk about movies, music, sports, and tons of useless knowledge, which is, this is my wheelhouse,
and me too. And that's one of the things that, like, when we were getting together to do the show together, when Josh passed the baton, I think one of the episodes we did, we were talking about music, and it, like, really kind of like both sparked us up. And I really love any questions you have about music stuff, guys, please, or send us random tidbits so we can talk about them, because this is fucking great shit.
Blue World Order.